Chapter goes over cryptography. I've done a little bit of cryptography with your email encryption, which I know everybody's using email encryption now, right? Every week. Yeah, right. But cryptography is everywhere. We did the lab, I believe, last week or week before last on the encrypting partitions and hiding partitions. So this week just goes over more cryptography. Cryptography is everywhere in your banking, online websites, your mobile phones, your desktop computers, all have cryptography in it built in, and it's used all the time. Even a lot of your cars have cryptography key locks in them now to let you into the car or lock you out of the car, however you want to look at it. But cryptography is used everywhere. Been around for centuries. It's just now in the computer age. And basically, you've heard this term hashing before. We'll talk about that because cryptography and hashing are kind of hand in hand. And the way passwords are stored in Windows is through cryptography. They're encrypted and then they're hashed into a hash file that literally has nothing to do with the password itself. It's an end result of that password. It goes through some type of cryptography algorithm that kicks out this hash file. And I believe week 2 in here we did that NT reset lab, which basically overwrote that hash file with a null file or a null password for an admin. And so hashing is used a lot in cryptography. Anytime you hear hashing or cryptography, you're going to hear hashing in that same vein. And then we're going to look at some basic cryptography algorithms that are out there. So let's go ahead and define it first. Cryptography basically involves understanding what it is and what it can do. So it involves understanding how cryptography can be used as a security tool to protect data. And by the way, there is a whole field just in cryptography analysis, both in military and also non-military fields. I had a student last semester that was a Marine and had been in cryptography analysis for their division for like 2 years or something. And so it is it is both in military and non-military both. But anytime you hear cryptography, you always think of security, right? You always think of a security aspect of some form or fashion and protect it. So it's basically transforming your information into some type of unintelligible form. Like when we did the email lab, we looked at, you guys saw this maybe when you didn't have the public key maybe from your neighbor, you maybe intercepted that email, it just looked like a whole bunch of gibberish on the screen. Okay, and it might have just said in the message, hi, or test message or something in the actual message, but it had a whole slew of gibberish basically on that form. And so it's basically transforming that information into something unintelligible that while it's being transmitted, it's going to be unintelligible. It's going to be stored so the unauthorized users can't access it. And even if they did access it without the right key to decrypt it, I'm not going to really be able to do much with it. Okay? Steganography, we went over that as well, where we did the hide and picture, which is pretty cool. We talked about how on that lab, basically where you can, it's replacing the least significant bit with the data. And cryptography and steganography go hand in hand as well, because in that lab, if you remember, you had different cryptography, security components that you could choose from, or categories you could choose from, and different bits of encryption. But it hides the existence of the data. What appears to be harmless image, or maybe a movie, or maybe a music file, could have embedded data in it and hidden data. In the days today, with since 9/11, even before, with all the wars, basically had this type of thing going on, hiding data, corporate espionage. All corporate companies now, Apple, Microsoft, all have high-end, as you can imagine, high-end research and development. What I mean by high-end is very secure. Very few people get into those rooms or those buildings that have the research and development. And then when you leave, you're patted down and like you were basically in a war zone or something. Make sure you have no weapons on you or something. And the weapons in this case would be a piece of paper with a little note on it or something, to make sure you're not sneaking out some information. But steganography, we did in the lab, I believe, the image one, but you can do audio, you can do video, and hiding data. Did anybody get a chance to investigate or look at any other types of steganography besides the hide and picture one, or play with? Yeah.
They have like the voice.
The voice?
Yes.
What was that one now?
That one, it's like you can talk and then it's like audio and then
Now, when it converts, does it convert to something intelligible, something you can understand?
Yes, only the person, but you have to send that person the key to actually get.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand this. You speak something into the system, right?
Mm-hmm.
It converts it to something totally different,
Yes.
right? The person on the other end, or say if I was to be a man in the middle and get that information, it would make sense, but it would have nothing to do with the original message.
Exactly.
Can you give me an example of kind of what you spoke and what it converted to, maybe? Can you remember? Or just it doesn't have to be totally 100%, valid here. Just kind of give an idea.
What I kind of understand from what he was saying is that, like, say we will just talk, like, just record the voice.
Right.
And you can add whatever information you want to add. Remember that we always need a key, and the person on the other end that you're sending it to need that key to retrieve the information that you want actually add in here.
So the key that would feed this audio or convert this audio would then feed it back and come through on the other end as the original message.
Exactly.
Correct?
Yes.
Well, that's kind of cool. I hadn't actually heard of that one. So, is that going to be in your presentation?
Yeah.
Sweet. That's going to be good. I like that. That's a good one, actually. I like that. I've not heard of that one. So that's a brand new one I've not heard of. So, MP3 students have always hit up on the MP3 one, the movie, but the voice one's a good one. I like that. That's a cool one, actually. That could actually be used in a lot of ways if you think about it. As far as corporate espionage could be used for. Think about this. I just thought of something. A voice message on a phone. When people are out. Sorry, I'm out right now, but if you leave a message, yada, 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 that whole message could be encrypted.
Or an app.
Yeah.
How many people could have their phone in their pocket? It could be recording what's being said and then convert it and ship it somewhere else. If you're running out of Wi-Fi, or not a Wi-Fi signal,
Yep.
but your 3G or 4G signal, the company's not going to pick up on what's not being transferred across their network.
So it could be encrypted on the fly. Encrypted on the fly, decrypted on the fly on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. And so is that fairly new during your research that you found? Is that something that's been out a while? Or?
I gotta get more information.
Okay. Well, we'll wait. We'll wait and be excited about that. So that'll be good though. But anyways, hiding information of any type into any type of media is steganography. We use cryptography in that. And here's basically an informational screen here on what happens. The message you're wanting to hide, it says you should attack. It's converted to binary, zeros and ones, right? Then brought over into a message header information that hides that data inside of another bit of data. And we'll say maybe this is a picture or something. It's hiding it in a picture in the middle there and replacing it with a least significant bit. And then when you look at the picture, looks normal, nothing abnormal. In fact, when we talked about in this lab, you're like, well, yeah, when I got a file that was pretty close to the original bitmap file, I could see some degradation from the original. But how many times on a website do you see an original picture from a modified picture? We don't see that. We just see what's out there, right? The modified picture that's on the website. And so it's hard to we can just say, well, that's kind of a terrible picture. It's kind of pixelated or whatever. And so if you think about it, I mean, conspiracy theorists can go crazy on this one because you can think about it. What does it take to create a Facebook account today? What validity of you as a person or do you have to create a Facebook account?
An email address.
You have to have an email address. And can you create an anonymous email address easily?
Yes.
You definitely can, right? We know that. So if you create an anonymous email easily where it not be traced back to you, say you created a public library or something, you go to some public kiosk somewhere to actually create it. Then you go back and create the Facebook account. And then on the Facebook account could be hidden pictures, or maybe not hidden pictures, picture galleries. And each picture gallery could have multiple hidden data, could be documents, could be executables, could be voice messages, whatever the case may be, hidden maps, hidden patterns. And it could be a simple Facebook page on, I don't know, nature or something like that, that is just public. Because you can easily make a Facebook page, and if you make a Facebook page, that's publicly accessible to anybody. You don't have to have, that person doesn't have to get an account to view a Facebook page, because it's public. I believe to post on that page you have to get an account, but to view the first wall part and the pictures, you can actually get into that. You don't need an account to do that. Because I can set up, I have 2 pages on myself. I set up publicly, and what that means is you can come to that page. It'll give you a little password prompt thing when you go to that site, but you can actually go in there and look at the wall, look at my pictures, without actually getting an account.
If they have their account set up as public, you can literally Google search it without logging in and look at everything.
Look at everything, because it's public. You're right. It's totally public. Everything's Google searched, and after a month or 2, everything's going to be in the Google search for sure, and be able to search any picture you want. And so, level, it gives one of the famous ancient cryptographers was Julius Caesar. He shifted each letter of a message to general 3 places down the alphabet. In fact, I don't know if you guys watch any of the CSI stuff. There's a CSI, I think it's a CSI Los Angeles, I think it is. It's got LL Cool J in it. Anyway.
CIS.
Yeah, CIS is the Los Angeles one?
NCIS.
NCIS, that's right. NCIS Los Angeles. Anyway, there's an episode on that one where they had a cryptic thing that they had to figure out. And what it was before this guy died, he took a piece of cloth and wrapped it around a broomstick and then wrote a message on the cloth, and you couldn't see what the message was until you wrapped it around just a certain way on this broomstick. Then you could figure out what the message said. Because if you just looked at the cloth in general, it just like a whole bunch of lines and stuff like that. And so that was one bit of encryption. And then also at the end, there's a piece at the end where LL Cool J got on the very top of this room and was looking down. They were trying to figure out this one piece, and they saw a little bookmark out of all the books sticking out. And what it was the message, to decrypt the message on the broomstick, you had to have the first letter. He had a bookmark where you had the first letter of the word in each book was a key, like Julius Caesar's was. It was a key in the alphabet. So an A was saying like an N, a B was like a Z, so on and so forth. So you had 26 letters, right? And then under those 26 letters was the key to each one of those letters, if that makes sense. And so they were all jumbled. And so an A really was an A might have been an N. A B wasn't a B might have been a C or something like that. And so, but you couldn't see till you got to the very top of the room, and you could go in then, and they got the first letter of each one of the books that was underlined and decrypted the message using cryptography, crude cryptography skills. But even back in Julius Caesar's day, he shifted the letter, each letter of the message, to 3 places down the alphabet. So basically encryption is just changing that original text to a secret message, and it's really good when that message makes sense at the end, because if it doesn't make sense, it kind of, in my mind, is more of a red flag than if it doesn't make sense. So if it's a message that does make sense somewhat and it is intercepted, it'll be like, that's no big deal, or whatever, or, oh yeah, let's follow this, but maybe it's going to be a false lead, versus just gibberish. Because if you see gibberish like in that email encryption lab, well, you see a key at the top of it, you see a key at the bottom, it's encrypted. I mean, there's no hiding that, right? It's missing a key. It actually says that in the message. And so if you can have encryption to where the actual message, that's why I like the audio thing you're talking about, because if you intercepted that encrypted message, whatever it might be, it makes sense. And if it makes sense, that the people that are wanting to steal that information or whatever are going to be less likely to try to hack into something that makes sense than to something that doesn't make sense and is a whole bunch of gibberish. It's going to be more of a red flag if that message is gibberish, if that makes sense. And so cryptography skills over time have escalated to the fact to where basically, from your example, they're getting to where basically they're getting smart about it to where, okay, if we're going to encrypt something, let's have it encrypted as something that makes sense if somebody does intercept this, right? That way, it'll be less likely to try to hack into it. Because after you've encrypted something, they're going to have to decrypt it and change that secret message back to its original form, whether it be an audio, whether it be a text, whether it be a picture. And so you've got your plain text here like we did for the email lab. You encrypt it. It has a ciphertext. I think in the lab we did a few weeks back where we used the software that hides a partition. The longer you set your mouse on that screen and kind of moved it around, the longer that ciphertext was created and became longer and more random. So your ciphertext, notice your ciphertext on both ends is the same for the encrypting part and the decrypting part. And then the algorithm is what unlocks it with the ciphertext. Okay? So you've got to have that mathematical algorithm for any cryptography, but you also have to have the ciphertext key. All right? And that key can be simple or it can be complex. Now the more complex that key is, the better, because if someone was to get a hold of that algorithm and you had a simple key, it'd be much easier for them to hack that and to find it than a more complex key. Now security, it goes without saying that cryptography can protect confidentiality and information. It can protect integrity, availability, authenticity, and non-repudiation. But we talked about some downsides, and I know you guys have probably thought about it a little bit on encryption, especially for the key aspect of it. We talked about what if they lose the key? What do you do then? And what if you only have one key and you lose it? That's what we talked about. Maybe, in my experience, companies will have multiple backups of that key. It won't just be in one location. Maybe be on a website, on the local domain that they're currently on, backed up to a tape and shipped off site. Because let's say this happens, which could happen, the building burns down. If you don't have your backups, all your backups and everything's local, you've lost everything. But all companies will have backups shipped off site if they're doing backups correctly. Like here on campus, we have backups literally walk off campus every night. And then every business I've ever worked for that has backups, same deal. It might not be every night, but like once a week, they'll have backups shipped off site. And so the reason they do that is basically if something was to happen disastrous to the company's building, that location, they can restore back. Now, like in the companies I've worked at that have done backups, they've shipped off site, even the ones that have only done it once a week, say it's a Monday and you shipped your stuff off Friday of the last week, we'll say it's a Wednesday, and you had 3 days into the business week, something happens to the building that burns down, and you didn't ship off that data from Monday to Wednesday. Well, you only lost 3 days. 3 days is a lot better than everything. And so you can always go back to that. They back it up. Most companies will at least back it up once, have a ship off site once a week, like on a Friday. They should take a backup tape, a full backup, and somebody will literally come pick it up. A courier will come pick it up, send it to another location. Also, there's a lot of online backups now, commercial ones that you can purchase, companies purchase. They can be pretty pricey, but it's a lot easier because you don't have to worry about people picking up or couriering it. It's done automatically over the web. And that's a popular one actually for consumer level. Business level, I don't know. Gigs of data going over the lines online would be a little much, I think. So most companies still are going to probably be stuck to the physical courier scenario of shipping their tapes. Because, like here on campus, we have probably on a given day, our backups are into the 30, 40 gigs just backup alone. That's just the backups. So running that over a web service will be a little much. So, but consumer level, you and I maybe have the most, let's say, I don't know, a gig a day. We'll say a gig for high end users. Still, that's doable over a 24-hour period to sync. But availability of cryptography, confidentiality, integrity is all part of keeping things secure. And only thing I want to go over on this list is basically the non-repudiation one, which is basically proving the user performed a certain action. That's the importance of cryptography. So on that email lab we did, the importance of having email encryption is you are who you say you are when you send it. Okay, in encryption. Because you could have a person hack into your machine maybe that can grab that key, but maybe they don't know the password you used to create that password initially to send that file. And so if they did find it, it's going to be able to hack into it, but it'll be a little harder to do that. So protection on non-repudiation is non-repudiation prevents an individual from fraudulently denying they were involved in a transaction. So all your banking transactions, now granted, could somebody get your username and password and get into your bank account? Definitely. They could. But the bank can say, well, somebody did. We're just saying that because we have the system in place, we know you did it. Here's our proof of it. Here's our track of it. Now, proving that you didn't do it is a whole other story, and it might take months to get that proven until proven otherwise. But it does keep a record. Cryptography does keep a record that this transaction did happen. Maybe you didn't do it, but it did happen. Reason behind it, for businesses anyway. So in cryptography, you have algorithms. We talked about one already. Hashing is one. It has an algorithm. Symmetrical and asymmetrical are the other two. Hashing by itself, the first one, is just a one-way hash. It's a process for creating a signature for a set of data, like a password. You create a password, you hit save, it saves this one-way hash into a file like Windows NT does, and now you've got your saved password. Hashing is only used for integrity to ensure that the information is in its original form. No unauthorized persons hacked into it. And a hash is created from a set of data that cannot be reversed once it's created. So here we have an ATM card. ATM cards use hash algorithm. On the back of your card, you have your little black strip everybody sees all the time. You swipe it all the time. I do it, you do it. Well, it has a value on that card built into that stripe that's a hashed value. And basically when you swipe it in the ATM machine or at the store or wherever, it's going to go ahead and take that 4-5 number and create here a hash value of 93452. The hash value on the cards compared to the hash value computed from the PIN, and that verifies it's actually the correct access code to get in. And so when you create your ATM, I don't know if you remember this, when you got your ATM card from the bank, generally, if you watched them, they swiped your card, entered in the PIN that you wanted, or you entered it in generally how it works. You enter it in, and then it's stored. That information is stored. And so when they swipe it again, that PIN is now actually part of that four-digit PIN is now actually part of the hash code.
So how does that work with the swiping scans that go on where people they can swipe the card and get all the information off of it? How are they able to convert the hash if it can't be?
Well, and that one, it will be missing the PIN part, if that makes sense. You can have a hash without a PIN. You can have a hash of whatever, and I can hash files and then just say, okay, here's my algorithm for all these files that are hashed, and I'm going to get this data out without a PIN. That's how they do it basically. Is you've got and then there's stores, well, RFID tags as an example. Like you go to Walmart or wherever and they have that little tag on there and they have to demagnetize it or whatever. In that little tag, in that RFID tag, it's a hash value. The scanner scans it and then converts it to whatever the product is. The name, the cost, the product code or whatever the case may be. how long they've had it in stock, a whole bunch of data about it. Another one that would be a good example is a QR code you've heard about maybe. QR codes, where anybody can create a QR code today, and embedded in that nice little QR code is, it's a hash value basically, a visual value, and then when you take a picture of it with a scanner program, it takes that picture, and then each one of those little black boxes are converted to a hash numeric value that gives you a URL, a phone number, a website, a note, whatever it is, a Facebook page, whatever. You can create whatever with a QR code. And so, yeah, hashes can be tied to a pin like they are in a ATM, but hashes don't have to be tied to a pin. They just have to be tied to some algorithm to decrypt them, basically, or to de-hash them to an actual valid whatever. And so you got your algorithm. In this case, you got your algorithm along with the pin they enter in to determine, okay, they've entered in this, what is it, 93542 or 1234, whatever it is. I think it's 93542 on this one. It goes through the algorithm and says, okay, it matches that hash value. Hash algorithm is considered secure if it has these characteristics. Some ciphertext, like in the ATM example, the PIN. Two different sets of data cannot produce the same hash, which is known as collision. So you're not going to have two ATM cards with the same hash value. It should be impossible to produce a data set that has desired predefined hash, meaning it's going to be different each time. So you could have multiple 4-pin, well, let me go further than that. You only have an infinite, a finite, not infinite, but a finite amount of 4-digit scenarios, 4-digit pin scenarios. But what you can change is the logic behind the algorithm for the hash. That can be changed all the time. So it should be impossible to create a data set that has a desired predefined hash. The resulting hash ciphertext cannot be reversed. The hash serves as a check to verify the message contents. So here we have an original message, you are hired. We have a hash algorithm. The message and the hash is transmitted now. Notice you have the you are hired with the hash 540985. Then the man in the middle grabs it, tries to convert it to you are fired. It does not match on the other end, that hash value. So that's how it's determined that this is a incorrect, on the end result, an incorrect hash on the end. If you've ever seen downloads from any website, they usually have like a hash,
MD5 checksum.
ISO. ISO's a good, what was it?
A lot of them will post the MD5 checksum.
Yeah, MD5, yes, exactly what it's called. MD5 checksum, where you can match that what you've downloaded is from the original creation. And so a lot of times websites will keep that kind of loose for you to where you don't have to really mess with that. But there's some softwares that actually will utilize what you've downloaded with the original hash file, that MD file checksum. If it doesn't match, it'll tell you, like Microsoft does this. If you download something from Microsoft website supposedly, and they have a hash value in the program that says, sorry, this wasn't downloaded correctly, or it was downloaded from an unreputable site. It'll say something like that now in their little message, because it doesn't match that original hash value that was created. Now, hash values are often posted on internet sites in order to verify the file integrity, as I mentioned. They're on download files. So Red Hat's popular for that. It has the RPM, which is like an executable on Linux. As an RPM here, MD5 checksum. That's the main one that's going to be used, by the way. There is another checksum called SHA1 checksum. And basically what this is doing, each one of these, you'll notice on the top one, the MD5 checksum is different than the MD5 checksum on the bottom. Okay, because it's using the same algorithm, by the way, but a different hash value checksum at the end. So, confidentiality, integrity, availability, authenticity, and non-repudiation. Remember, non-repudiation means this is proving that you did send this email, you did download this file, you did send this file, whatever the case may be. The MD part, the message digest, is just an algorithm that basically has different versions. You have a 2, 4, and a 5 version. It's a common hash algorithm that takes a number of components depending on the algorithm, from file name, file size, header information, to determine that hash, whether it be a 2, 4, or 5. Most common is going to be the 5, the later one. Then you also have an SHA, which is more secure than the MD. It's a family of hashes. What this does is creates patterns and encrypts these patterns. And then you have a 1 and a 2 SHA. And the bottom one is considered to be the most secure, the SHA-2 hash algorithm. This one, I think SH2 does go to 512. Yeah, it does go to 512. And then Whirlpool, notice on the bits on this one goes to 512 as well. 512-bit encryption, which is very high encryption, and it's an international recognition and adopted by standards throughout the world on encryption for hash algorithms. And then we'll end on this password hashes. This is the one that most network administrators are dealing with a lot, and having to worry about a lot, is people getting other people's passwords or getting into other accounts and cracking in passwords. And all the software we've used this semester, NT Reset, one, John the Ripper is another one that was mentioned. But basically it's all hacking the hash file of the NT password on a Windows machine. So another use for hashes is storing password. When passwords create an account, password is hashed and stored somewhere on that machine, usually in the C Windows directory. And in Microsoft Windows NT has hash passwords in 2 different forms. Have what's called an LM and an NT LM. The LM is the LAN manager hash, and the NTLM is the new technology LAN manager hash. Most Linux machines use the MD5 hash, and Apple SHA1 hash. And so basically what happens is on hash algorithms is they basically take and have a cipher key, have a cryptography algorithm. So your password's entered in the little text box. The person hits enter to save it. It goes through that whatever encryption they've decided to use, whether it be MD5, SHA1, whatever that system uses, then creates that hash algorithm. That's why software like NT Reset works. It knows the algorithm it uses, that Windows uses. That's not hidden. That's not a hidden secret, by the way, on what algorithm Windows uses. So if you know the algorithm, it's a matter of, in NT Reset, it overwrites it with an algorithm. It overwrites that hash file with another file. Instead of trying to crack it, like John the Ripper does, it will just overwrite it with a new file. And in my mind, from a hacking perspective, that's a quicker way to do it. Instead of spending, we've already seen some websites that Alex mentioned and some others have mentioned, some of these passwords, if they're the right amount of security and length and uppercase, lowercase, numeric, symbols might take centuries to crack, versus overwriting it. Okay, and so a lot of hackers actually, but the problem with overwriting is this: you have to be on the system, on the network, and have rights to do that. In order, and a lot of times you're not going to have that. That's why softwares like Cain and Abel come into play, where you can get a list of hash values, bring them in, take them off site, and then they might spend months trying to crack into those and maybe get 1 or 2 and then come back and try to do some damage. Because to do the NT Reset, what do you have to have access to? In order to do that lab, in order to do that hack on any system, whether it be client-based or server-based, what do you have to, what's the scenario?
You have to physically be able to access the hardware.
Alice has to go into the server room, pop in that CD or DVD into the server itself, restart the server for this to work. Well, generally that's not going to happen. Okay? That's generally not going to be able to do that. But could you go in and run Cain and Abel for 10 minutes on a server, set it up like we've done in here, and capture for 10 minutes as much data as you can on network activity, hash values, passwords, whatever you can get. Capture that data, bring it home, or bring it wherever to see if you can crack that information. And some of those passwords, as we saw in the lab, was immediate. You saw them immediate as they were coming across the network. Passwords I was entering into Gmail and online services and into RBC Eagle was being literally, cracked as I was typing them in to my machine, and so, which is pretty scary. But so if you're on a network and you have a hacker on a network that's running Cain and Abel, there are ways they can go in to grab hash files without having NT reset. But there are some ways to secure this from happening on your system. One of the ways is making sure there's no open ports on any of your walls that folks can get into with a Cat5 cable. Make sure they're locked down. That's number one. Number two, your Wi-Fi access. Making sure your Wi-Fi access is the highest security you can get. And we've talked about downsides to that. There's some businesses that can't do that because of what? Why can't they get the highest security that's available in Wi-Fi?
They have older devices.
So if you have older devices, you're gonna have to go to that. The weakest link in the business would be older devices. You have to set it for that security. Or I have seen companies set multiple access points, some less secure, some more secure, and the less secure maybe be on like a DMZ port, and it's not connected in any form or fashion to the network. So if hackers were to get in to that Wi-Fi network that's on a DMZ port, it's just on port 80, they can get internet stuff, but they're going to get no network stuff whatsoever, totally disconnected. We see that on, like, if you go to Starbucks, if you go to Culver's, you go to any site, any business that has free access to the web, they're going to be using DMZ port. You're not going to be having critical data you're going to be able to access anyway. So that's one way to do it. Put stuff on DMZ port if you're going to have guest access. The other is education. Training people. We've learned this semester that most Americans in general trust people, right? We're trusting. And so most of the ways hackers get in is not through programs like John the Ripper or even Cain and Abel anymore. They call up. There's actually hacking symposiums where they have students in a little plastic box, basically, with a little script to call businesses and see. They have like these flags that they raise every time this business gives them a password or lets them into a website without any registration or whatever. That's how people get in, is through social engineering versus the hacking. And if it's social engineering, it's actually been argued in court. Hackers have kind of gotten the right lawyers and been able to bypass jail time because they were given the information because they asked for the information and the person gave it to them. Now, granted, the person on the other end, is gullible, or whatever you want to call it. But if you get the right lawyer on that hacker's side, it's going to be hard to fight in court that they stole that. Okay? No, I didn't steal it. Did I ask you if I could have it? Yeah, but you said you were. Well, yeah. You might get a little trouble for saying they were somebody that they weren't, maybe impersonating somebody else. But impersonation is a lot lesser crime than stealing something in courts. And so impersonation a lot of times can be even waived as well if they have the right lawyers on their side. And so basically to secure your network, it's the ports, Wi-Fi access, education, which in my mind, that's probably the most lacking is education of employees on what's a good password, why should I share my password, and if somebody does come in, is there any role playing in the organization of say, okay, Johnny comes in the door, it's noon, they've got to meet with the CEO, you've got to get in your computer. Okay, human nature, in America anyway, is what do we do? A lot of times. What do people do?
I say no.
Alex says no.
I say no.
You
Let
say
me
no.
verify.
We all say no, but what's a normal user
What does everyone
do?
out there do? Oh, sure.
The normal non-network security network student is going to do what? maybe,
Okay.
or be tempted more so to do what?
Log out of Facebook and tell you to have fun.
Yeah, I gotta go. You got coffee. You gotta go bathroom. Sure. Because what are they feeling on their end? Okay, they just were told, I'm in a meeting with your CEO in 5 minutes. I forgot a file. If I don't have this file, he's gonna be really mad. What's that person gonna? The secretary, a person in front. Yeah. If I don't let this person in, is this gonna come and backfire on me? Or if I go and ask the CEO, is he gonna backfire on me? Like, yeah, you let him have it. He needs, the list goes on of what person. So it's a psyche thing. It's a social engineering thing is what it's all about. And that's the one aspect I think in companies, and that's why a lot of companies are actually hiring networking folks that can do that. They can train people on what I'm just mentioning to you. Real life scenarios on this is why you can't bring a USB drive to work. It's not good enough just to tell people don't bring them, or you can't have them, or you can't have CDs. People just get mad. They just like, what are you talking about? Well, here's why. Okay, they explain to them, okay, people can take corporate information from a USB drive. People can put corporate information on a CD drive. You can't use our email for personal purposes. People can send our corporate information across the wave on an email. This is the reasons why you can't do it. And then you lose your job because we close the doors because we lost all our business. People understand that. It's not going to take, you don't have to give them detailed information, just broad information. Most users they don't need to understand all the technical details. Just, okay, well, I can't do this because this could happen. Oh, okay, I get it. No big deal. Okay, no big deal. Because otherwise what happens is when networking departments tell users you can't do this, you can't do that, 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 you can't. What's the first thought?
Why?
Why can't I do it? What did I do wrong? I'm just wanting to listen to music while I'm working. Why can't I what's the reason? So if you give them no reason, that's where a lot of stuff is happening internally that's not even happening externally, it's internally. The employees internally are getting upset going, I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to do this because I didn't get this, And so they have all these no's, and so they turn around, and it's the actual employees that actually are causing problems on the network. Because if you tell people no, in my experience, without a reason of why they can't do it, or here's the reasons why you can't do it, again, you don't have to be told detail about it. 80% of people are fine with that. 20% of people, they'll never be fine with it. Not going to happen. They feel offended. You don't trust them. The message, goes on and on. And so you've got to train them and educate them. It doesn't take real long to do it. And once you train them and educate them, that's when security really, in my mind, is beefed up in companies. And banking companies have proven this. Fortune 500 companies have proven this. When people are educated on a user level, for just general security stuff that we're talking about, they can have secure doors, they can have the securest network in the world, but if their employees aren't trained on what information not to give out and why, what information not to bring to work and why, what types of hardware you can bring to work and what types you can't, and here's why. If you're not giving that information, we've all heard the term information's power. It is. Information is power. It's powerful to have that information for employees because they don't have to be networking or geeks or anything like that to understand what you're talking about. In fact, what it's going to do is it's going to make that network more secure, the company function better because people don't understand what's going on. And not only that, but what I've seen happen is the employees will actually give you ideas like, you talked about this the other day about this is why we can't use USB drives. I thought about this too. Like maybe an example was we had mentioned something about, I think it was cryptography on pictures and stuff, hiding data in pictures. Should we be able to post pictures of our corporate events on a Facebook page? Should we be able to post information about what we do here on our Facebook page? And that goes into, a discussion about, yeah, we need to talk about that. There's some stuff maybe that could be divulged in a Facebook page or a picture or whatever that could maybe cause our company to lose business or maybe offend a customer or whatever. And so, there's a lot of things that they start thinking about that IT we don't think about at all, because, they start helping in that aspect of social engineering. All people understand social engineering when you explain it to them, what it's about, how it works. And most people have actually had social engineering applied to them some form or fashion, whether it be a salesperson, a family member, trying to get money out of them, whatever, okay, to borrow money or whatever. Kids are great at social engineering, okay? They know how to do it, okay? And so they understand it once you explain the concept. And so in my mind, cryptography is great. Getting your network as secure as possible is great. But educating folks on what we're talking about here is probably one of the most important pieces that's missing in most departments. And a lot of times it's because in IT, we think if we tell people this, all heck's going to break loose. They're going to think, they're going to start doing this, that. It's the exact opposite. It really is. It's the exact opposite. You give people just enough information to understand what it is you're talking about. Most people aren't going to know, well, can you tell me what an algorithm is? Or can you just find to me the algorithm we use? 90% of people, 99% of people could care less. But if you tell them, hey, if this information leaks out by you giving a password to somebody that shouldn't have it, you could lose your job. Or the whole department could lose your job because we lose business. Because we've just now lost that patent, or we've just given that patent to this other company or whatever the case may be. They understand that. They get that. And so, and then they turn around and start helping IT and helping you secure information in a better fashion. And so, okay, I want to end that, and I want to get our